can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Bryan Clayton of YourGreenPal.com. And Bryan, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. We were just chatting before we hit record here. John Warlow wrote Built to Sell. Great book. You have a great podcast. So check out that episode I did with John. Also Michael Gerber of the E-Myth. I know Bryan, that's one of his favorite books, and check out the interview you did with Michael Gerber. It's a classic. And Ross Gordon, he talked about how he started Craft Jack and how he sold it to a home advisor. Craft Jack is similar to your GreenPal in a lot of ways, but in a different space for contractors. And your GreenPal is obviously for lawn care. But he talked about how he built up and sold it. And then he runs Mystery Tackle Box. So he's grown it. If you are a bass fisherman or you know someone, check that out. It's a great company that he's built up there. But this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. And at Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. How do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution. Bryan, we call ourselves the magic elves that work in the background to make it look easy for the host and the company, kind of like you guys, your company does for lawn care. And for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. And I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I've found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25.com. And I'm excited to introduce Bryan Clayton. He's the CEO of GreenPal, which is an online marketplace to connect homeowners with lawn care services. And often it's referred to as the Uber for lawn care. And GreenPal is growing to over 300,000 active customers. And you can check them out at yourgreenpal.com. Previously, he actually built and sold an 8-figure lawn care business himself. So he knows this industry intimately. He's going to share his journey. And it's always a pleasure in talking to someone who's built up a significant company and then they're willing to start over and do it again. So Bryan, thanks for joining me.
Jeremy, that was a great introduction. Thank you so much for having me on.
I want to talk about early on, because early on, your dad kind of pushed you to make money. You wanted to make money, but he's like, go make some money. And you got a lawnmower and you started hustling and doing that. Okay. And you built that up. And it sounds like it was pretty significant even in high school.
Totally. I think he just got tired of watching me play Nintendo all day. And he said, get off your butt. I lined up a gig for you. You're going to go mow the neighbor's yard, and made me go cut.
So he lined it
grass.
up for you. Okay.
Yeah. Lined it up, negotiated the price and everything. And not only that, but after I went over there and I thought got the job done, he then walked me around and showed me all the spots I missed. So really helped me get started, giving me that push in the right direction. But something clicked because I got paid $20 for like an hour worth of work. And the first thing I did was pass out a bunch of flyers all over the neighborhood. And yeah, I was mowing like 40 yards a week in high school, making $500 a week as a kid. It was awesome.
That's
and
great
I just
money.
stuck with that business all through high school, all through college for like 15 years, and built it up into an actual business.
What did your dad do?
My dad was in the military, and then he went into manufacturing. So the household was ran from a top-down military style of management and leadership. So this was not a request; this was a direct order.
What did you learn from your dad in leadership that you brought into? Because obviously you built up your lawn care business to over 150 staff, and now you're building up GreenPal. What did you learn from about leadership from him?
Authenticity. You have to lead from the front. You have to actually do it. You got to really be in there with your people. It's not lonely at the top. You don't know what that means because you're there in the trenches with your people. I learned that from him. He raised us that way, and then I kind of also watched him and his style with how he ran his businesses, and so yeah, that is how I would describe my leadership style to this day. Is I try not to ask anybody to do anything that I have not done myself, because every time I do that, it always blows up in my face. So that was his style, and I hope it's my style today.
How big was did you have other high schoolers working for you? What was it like in your senior year? How big was the business then?
Yeah, I had maybe two people helping me, and I learned a lot of hard lessons around unit economics, around you can't just throw bodies at a problem. You can't just bring on more labor because the business may not sustain that. And there were many weeks where my helpers got paid more money than I did. So what's awesome about a business like that, the lawn mowing business, a home cleaning business, whatever, you can learn the 80%, the 80-20 of what it means to run a business in such a simple little business like that. And so in those early days, I learned some hard lessons around keeping track of labor hours and making sure I'm pricing work appropriately and making sure we're running an efficient operation that still, are ingrained in how I look at things today, 20 years later. And then as time went on, I went to college and went to night school and mowed grass during the day. And I think when I graduated college, I probably had 5 employees, and then made a business plan. And as time went on, I eventually grew it to 150 people.
That's what I was going to ask about the transition from high school to college, because you have a business making money. Some people after college are making the same that you were making your senior year, but you decided to go off to college, but you were still running the business at the same time that you were going to college.
Yeah, and it was a hard decision when I graduated, because it took.
Were you thinking like, I'm not even going to college, I'm just going to do this full time? Or
really, that's what my gut was telling me. And looking back, I probably should have just skipped school. But my mom was a professor; she was a PhD English professor, and so I didn't want to let her down. And at the time, I really wasn't totally certain that I was going to be a lawn guy my whole life. When I graduated school, I was like, okay, I have a business degree now, and I'm going to be a lawn guy. I mean, that sounds like that sucks. But then I was able to make the distinction, like, no, business ownership could be my lane. And this business is working pretty good. And I was very lucky in the sense that the Middle Tennessee, Nashville area was booming then and is still booming now. And so the environment around me was growing and prospering. And so there was always new opportunities to grow my little business, for new neighborhoods getting built, new apartments, new offices, you name it. And they needed my little, humble services that I was offering. And these were, I guess, more shots on goal for me to test out sales and test out getting new contracts and test out growing my business. Had I not been in such a vibrant community, I don't know if I could have grown that business as fast as I did. So I got very fortunate that I was in that environment.
What were some of the growth pains you experienced in that business?
Yeah, nobody teaches us how to run a small business anywhere. We're not taught this in high school. Even if you go to business school, you're not taught how to run a profitable business for yourself. You mentioned earlier the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, one of my favorite books that walks you through step by step what it means to work on the business and not necessarily in the business. And it took me like 5 years to learn that simple thing just through trial and error. And the first maybe 5 or 6 years, I was self-employed. I didn't have a business, and I had to really make time to work on the business. What does this? I have high turnover. I got to get a better employee training system. I'm losing more customers than I'm getting. What's going on? I need to get a customer satisfaction system in place. What does my sales system look like? I'm just kind of ad hoc making phone calls when in my spare time. I need to get like a system in place. And so that took another few years. And then there was another unlock to the game, dovetailing off Michael Gerber's book, working in the business, working on the business. And then the third thing, working on myself. I realized that I didn't have the tool set to get where I was trying to go. I didn't really, my leadership style wasn't fully baked. My management was kind of half-assed. I didn't really have a formalized kind of sales strategy. And so I had to grow my skills. I had to work on myself, and that was hard. That was but it was something that I made time for. in maybe year 8 or 9. And I still try to do to this day.
Yeah, Brian, I asked that because, this applies to any business. I don't care if you're a lawn care. I don't care if you're a SaaS business,
That's right.
agency, the things that you mentioned, and we'll talk about your greenpal.com, but you mentioned employee, the things that were growth pains, employee training, you had to solve, customer satisfaction system, a sales system, and the leadership piece. What did you do from an employee training perspective that worked that other people should think about?
Yeah, and this was
you had over 150 staff, so
that's right. Yeah, and
a lot of people,
and not like the industry itself is very high turnover. Just because it's very labor intensive. We were doing better than the industry averages, but it still is a high turnover business in terms of staff, and so that's one of the big bottlenecks and choke points for growing a services-based business like that is how do you take like McDonald's it can run off of average people anywhere in the world, right? Their systems are so good, and you have to kind of like McDonald's-ize that type of business. And so I was looking for ways to do that, and I created Lawn Care University and was able to train somebody up in 2 weeks what would normally take like 9 months, and everything from how to properly mow a yard to properly identify plant diseases, to properly identify insect diseases, properly maintain equipment the right way, how to do it safe and not to break windows and throw rocks at cars. All of these like things that you pick up just through like on the job training. I spent a year and just created Lawn Care University and would put somebody through this, and within 2 weeks they were up and going and ready to like be able to put into our system. That took a long time. It wasn't fun, but it was the hard work that needed to be done to solve that piece of the bottleneck, I guess you could say. It's like in business, there's a difference between hard work and difficult work. The hard work is like beating your head against the wall, training people, and then them leaving, training, and just doing that over and over and over again. The difficult work is investing the time, coming in on a Sunday, making the videos for the training series, running it by some of your key people, tweaking it, writing the content for the next module of the training series, experimenting, getting some people to look at that. That's the difficult work. But if you do it once, then you don't have to mess with that anymore. And that was something I wish I had learned way earlier in my journey.
Brian, what was the delivery like for that? Because, we're
very
talking,
different.
We're talking someone who's mowing a lawn, right? So are you giving them a video to watch? Is it a manual? How do you deliver that so that they consume it? Because that depends on the people in the niche also.
It is so painful how much easier it is these days than it was back then. These days, you can spin up a end-to-end training system for new employees, new recruits, for whatever the hell it is you're doing in a fraction of the time than when I was first doing it in 2005. Because back then it was camcorder in the yard, like takes all day to shoot something that you might watch for 5 minutes. And then you get that and you put that on like a QuickTime thing and it's in a file somewhere. And then you have a test, but that's on a Word document and like literally is very much bean counting and manually executing it one phase at a time. And like somebody like watching over their shoulder to make sure that they're going through this. Man, nowadays, like there are so many platforms, so many SaaS solutions for this type of thing where you can shoot it on your phone, upload it, in the field. You use ChatGPT to make the copy and you're often going into tests is integrated and all that. There's literally no excuse to not systemize a lot of these aspects of your business these days. That was one of the things that was so painful when I sold that company and started a tech business, was seeing all of the ways my life was hard and like technology could have made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But
it was still sounds like it was just harder, but you were doing videos and basically training. And by the way, I did an interview with
very video
one
based.
of the founders of Thinkific, so you could check that one out. And that's what their platform does. There's a lot of platforms out there, but actually we use Thinkific for our resources and courses and stuff like that.
It's called Think of It.
Thinkific. Like it's
Thinkific.
think
Okay.
and then IFIC, so people can check that out. And there's a lot out there, but I just liked, he was I think his family member, maybe his brother, was the technical co-founder, so they're very technical, but it does everything it needs to. Probably you wish you would have had that solution in 2005. It's like you pay $50 a month and you can host all your stuff and everything like that.
What a time to be alive. What a time to start a business. It's in many ways, it's so much easier than it's ever been.
But employee training, so I could see that. That's really helpful to see. The next piece of a growth plan was customer satisfaction. You had to put in a customer satisfaction system in place. What did you do as far as that goes that people should think about?
Yeah. Well, it's going to sound trite, but it literally just asking people how we're doing. Like, what are three things you wish we would do better? And what are three things we can do to make your life a little easier? Like, we would literally email our top 300 customers that on a weekly basis. And that was something that I deferred for like 5 years because I thought that our customers were insatiable, unreasonable, looking to get one over on us. We were at odds with our customers a lot of times. And that was the totally wrong attitude to have. And that was the source of a lot of kind of my misery at times running that business. And when I changed that mindset to like, let's just ask our customers how we're doing, and then let's act on that. That's the first step. And then you can fix a lot of the problems that you kind of knew about, but maybe you were deferring them, or maybe you were sweeping them under the rug. And so that's step one. And then step two, putting in a system to make sure you reinforce that little thing, but then also do business with yourself, secret shop yourself. I started doing that, and I still do it to this day with GreenPal. I would, I would have my fiance at the time call in to the front office and just ask for an estimate and ask for, go through the whole sales process, and I would just kind of watch it. And I came to learn that we were actually quite rude to people that wanted to do business with us. I didn't know this, but it wasn't until I signed up for my own business and did business with myself did I come to realize this. And so there's this weird gap that forms in every business between founder logic and customer logic. And the founder is looking at everything from one paradigm, and the customer's looking at it from a whole nother perception, a whole nother paradigm. And there's this weird gap. And I think the only way to close that gap is to do business with yourself and ask your customers how you're doing. And then the third thing is do your own customer support at least an hour a day. If you do that, you'll never be at a loss for what are the top three things you should be working on as a founder. And so even to this day with GreenPal, I still try to do at least an hour a day, sometimes more, of phone support, chat support, email tickets, you name it, because I don't want this gap to develop between my thinking and customer thinking.
You mentioned this, and a lot of people swear by, the NPS, sending that out,
That helps.
score to their clients and customers. There's two things that stick out when you talk about this. One is, how did you were asking the top 300 customers, what can we do better? What was the best methods to get a response back? Because, they're busy people, right? How did you make sure it was, I don't know, engaging, or there's something in it for them, or would they just respond? I don't know.
In those days, it was just a straight up old fashioned handwritten email. But these days, we integrate these things into our live chat. If somebody is talking to us through live chat on our app, and then that also integrates and connects to email. I think live chat and email are probably the best ways to ask. You mentioned earlier NPS, and that's a good way to kind of get a finger on the pulse of what's going on. But the NPS is an output metric of what's happening. I think you really need to what are the input metrics? What are the things that I'm doing to improve the customer experience? And let's focus on those. Yeah, an NPS survey is good. It kind of tells us how good or bad things are, but what are the actual habits, the things we're doing every day that help us get there? And for me, a daily habit is running customer support personally every day for at least an hour. That really helps me. Like, and you talk about leadership style. My people see that, and so when we're sitting around in a meeting discussing something, it's like I can say, no, actually, I talked to 4 people last week that had this problem, and so this is baked in actual interaction with the customer. It can be helpful for a founder to do that tactically and also from a leadership perspective.
What was something that came out of that was surprising when you asked those 300 customers, how can we do better? What surprised you?
I thought then and when I was starting GreenPal that all they cared about was price. All they cared about was like, I thought I didn't really want to ask the question because I thought they would say, I really wish you would like cut your prices, or I really wish you would like charge us 5% less, or something like that. But no, it wasn't that. It was more around reliability. Like, you guys you come out on Monday one week and then you come out on Wednesday another. And I know like rain's a factor and stuff, but you don't communicate these things to me. I don't know. And so like I kind of knew that was a problem, but I didn't really want to address it. And so I had to build a system back then where it's like, okay, it rained on Monday. We need to communicate to everybody that was going to get service on Monday that we're going to be there on Tuesday, and so on, and like build a process and a routine to fix that. And then guess what? I didn't hear that anymore. And now it was 3 more things. And then so you just go through those cycles of iterating through improving your business based on what customers are telling you, not what your ideas or assumptions are.
Yeah. And you've baked in, what's interesting, Bryan, you've baked some of these things into GreenPal, right? So like reliability, I'll have you talk about it, but like these pain points that you were experiencing in this surveying customers is also embedded into GreenPal. So talk about how, from a customer user experience, how is it baked into GreenPal? And we can start with reliability.
Yeah, it's like when I started GreenPal, in many ways, I was solving a lot of my own problems. I was solving things that I saw exist in the real world, but between buyers and sellers in this business. And so I knew that was going to be an issue. I knew that the case of the disappearing lawn guy was real because I was kind of that guy, at certain points. And so I knew that we needed to solve for that. And the way I felt like we should solve for is we should just hold vendors accountable for how reliable they are. If they're supposed to be there on Thursday, let's score that. And we can now, because we have technology and we've built this platform, we can score how reliable they are and how often do they show up on the days that they're supposed to. And then we can surface that to consumers and let them make a better informed buying decision. Some consumers don't care about reliability. Maybe it's just an empty lot or a rental house. Just mow it once a month. I don't care. But if you want your lawn mowed on Friday, that's important. And we need to score that. And that's been a critical thing that's separated GreenPal from like the status quo is you can jump on GreenPal and quickly look at, okay, these service providers are scored on how reliable they are and how serious they're taking running their business.
What else is embedded into a GreenPal that, again, reliability is one. I'm going to, actually, Bryan, just share my screen for a second and just so people can see. So if you're listening, there's a video of this on YouTube. So you can see, right, yourgreenpal.com. You can see, again, it's just some of the things to think about from a website perspective. I'm sure Bryan has tested this a million times of how this is laid out, what customers are looking for. But one of the things that sticks out to me, following this, I love looking at websites and kind of the user experience, because this is what they spent a long time testing. You can see it's got a lot of the social proof stuff here. It's got pricing, because people are probably asking about that. And then look, it says tired of unreliable local lawn care. I mean, hitting the pain points in the subject. One thing I wanted to point out is, you were talking about the reliability, and I just, you have a bunch of resources here of different cities, all popular locations. Obviously, I'm outside of Chicago, so I'm looking at this, but you can see right, this is also a social proof reliability piece. It has how many times the person has been hired. So that you put in here because of that.
Yeah, because we're in the middle of the transaction, we can show you what's going on, and we can show you, okay, this is the spot price for your lawn and your zip code for contractors that want to do that surface. And here are your different options in terms of what other people are saying about them, how reliable they are, and how often they show up on the day they're supposed to. And then also, once you get to the menu of hiring somebody, you see another third metric of how often do they get booked for an ongoing service? How often do they get booked for, a second, third, or fourth visit? Because for us, that's a key metric to indicate, are they any good or not? Do you really want to work with somebody that only gets booked for a second or third visit 10% of the time? You want to work with the guy or gal that's getting booked all the time. And so that's something that we bring to the marketplace because we're in the middle of the transaction. We measure these things versus if you're hiring somebody on Facebook Marketplace or Home Advisor or Angie's List, they don't really know that stuff because they're not facilitating the transaction.
Yep. So you could see those are some of the things you think about reliability. What else did you, from feedback wise, did you include in GreenPal? Because again, you're listening to the customers and it's a dual-sided marketplace too. What else did you include because of feedback?
Yeah, it was like when I started GreenPal, so I built and sold my landscaping company and I thought, man, I think I know everything there is to know about getting a business going. And then I started GreenPal and I'm like inventing a whole new product from scratch. And I realized you don't know the first thing about this. It was literally like starting all over again. Even though I was a second-time founder, I was a first-time founder all over again. So I had to learn all of these lessons all over again by talking to vendors that use the platform and also customers that used it. And in the early days, it was 20, 30, 40 people. And I, sitting at kitchen tables, inside of a Starbucks, you name it, anywhere where somebody would meet with me that tried it, it would tell me, okay, I hired this person to come out and mow, and they didn't have the right size lawnmower for the fence gate to get into the backyard. So they weren't able to do it. I was like, okay, let's take a note of that. That's one problem we got to solve. Or I hired this guy and he actually mowed a little too low, and I like it to be 4 inches rather not 2. I was like, okay, we got to build in a little thing for that. And it was going over and over.
People
and over
are very particular about their lawn sometimes.
Exactly. Some people don't care at all, but some people are very particular. So it's not like a commodity. So it was going through those interviews over and over and over again and seeing like all the 1,000 things that can go wrong between your grass is 2 feet tall and just trying to get somebody to come mow it for you. We now had to solve as a platform. And the only way we know what to focus on is by talking to customers and letting them guide us and almost be like free R&D for what we needed to focus our firepower on. Because we had very limited firepower. We've been self-funded the whole way, and we kind of had to make smart bets with what little bit of money we had.
We'll get into growing the user base. A dual-sided marketplace is no joke to build because you're building two different sides. But I want to get it back into, you mentioned employee training systems, customer satisfaction systems, sales systems. At one point in the organization, you realized you had the operational pieces down and you realized I'm a sales organization.
Ooh, that was a tough growth hurdle in my first business and my second business. So in my first business, it was year 5 or 6, and I had this epiphany. It's like, I'm not in the landscaping business. I'm in the sales business. I like, if I can't get a sales process, a sales system, a sales machine at the core of this thing, then I don't have a business. I'm not going to get to 3 million. I'm going to be stuck at $1.5 million, 2 million for my whole life. And I'm literally going to be self-employed for the rest of my life. I'm never going to build a business if I can't figure that out. And so I took like 3 years, like running a sales system myself and doing it very poorly and ineffectively and with very little success, but just making it better and better and better and better. And then eventually getting a process that I could train somebody else on. I made a bad mistake in that first company of thinking that there was something mysterious about our industry and trying to hire salespeople that knew the industry and not necessarily motivated sales-oriented people. And I had to undo all of that wiring and say, no, our industry is not that complicated. I just need to hire a motivated sales type of person and teach them my system. And once I started doing that, I was able to build a repeatable sales engine. and which eventually was about 5 or 6 people that reported to me, and I was kind of the sales manager in my part time. And then fast forward to GreenPal, I took that approach again, very hand to hand combat, very white glove in terms of getting people on the platform, because that's what was needed to get the first 100, 500 customers. Then as time went on, I started to realize, well, that playbook won't work for this, because I can't one at a time sell people onto the platform. I need 1 million customers to make this thing matter. And I started to ask them, how do you normally find a lawn care service? And they would always like say, well, after I've tried everything else, I'll just go to Google and type lawn mowing near me, and I'll just dial for dollars on the search engine results page. And so we started like hearing that more and more. And then we realized, okay, our sales engine now is actually competing in this channel. We need to compete in Google organic search. And then we realized, however hard it was to build this platform, it's going to be twice as hard to make that happen. We have to like orient the whole company around competing in this channel. And we made that bet early on in like year 2. And we're a decade in, and that's still how we get 50% of the people that try our product out is through a simple Google search.
That's a tough route to take. I know you've tried different things, right? Because SEO is a long-term strategy. It's an ongoing long-term strategy. And you've talked about it in the past. It's like, I love the analogy you use. It's like getting in shape. You know what I mean? Like you can't just stop, even if you're in shape, you stop eating right, you stop working out, you're going to go back to where you were. So
that's right.
It's really a tough one. What's worked with SEO? Why SEO? I mean, it's like it's a tough decision to make, I think.
It goes back to a lot of well, it's gotta be a core competency, I think, in order to compete in it. You can't do it. You can't sprinkle on some SEO at the end. It has to be almost like core to what your company does. And you start to look at a lot of these really successful platforms. They start to look a lot like publishers almost, like big companies that are doing very well put out more content than a lot of news agencies. It's really, really strange, but they're getting a lot of traffic to their property, and 1% of that traffic is turning into people that need their services. And so playing that game is hard. And I think a lot of it in the early days does come down to good daily habits, and a lot like dieting almost, and a lot of like faith and working a plan, because with SEO and getting in shape, you don't see results for a very long time, and you have to stick it out. You have to work it day in and day out, and keep the momentum, and you go to the gym one time, you get home, you look exactly the same. SEO, you write 10 blog posts, your traffic looks exactly the same. But if you keep working the process, the inputs over a year, you'll wake up in a very different reality, where it's like, now, okay, I've got 20,000 visitors to my website every month. I didn't have to pay for every one of those to come to my property. And
what have you found works with this? So I'm looking, if you're looking at the video, you can see your greenpal.com, you can go to the blog. This is, these are funny pictures. Obviously, can mowing over dog poop be dangerous? It's worse than you imagined. What are things that you do that's working from a content perspective for SEO?
A couple things. One is when it comes to blog posts and content, we really try to write content that solves people's problems, that it answers a question that they're actually asking. And the way we do that is through Reddit, Quora, Facebook groups. If they're asking a question around like, hey, I have a customer that has a Great Dane that has dog poop all over the place, and I'm mowing this. Is this bad for my health? Like that was a question somebody asked, and so we researched it and we wrote a piece about that. And so we might get, I don't know, 100 visitors a week off of that piece, and maybe 1 or 2 of them will sign up. And so focusing on answering questions that people are actually asking, and creating the content that solves a problem for them, that helps them figure out how to do something, has been helpful for us. And we don't really do a whole lot of keyword research or anything like that. We just run this cycle of, okay, people are asking these 10 questions. Let's write content for that. The second thing is, the exhaust from our platform, the natural kind of output of lawns getting mowed. How do we use that to create content? And so, okay, well, now we know the average price. We know the average, like service cadence. We know how often people are adding on shrubs, shrub pruning. We know how often people are seeding and fertilizing, and packaging that up and putting that into the vendor's kind of profile has really helped us create unique content at scale for these individual service providers, so they can rank for lawn care Chambly or lawn care Peoria, Illinois, or something like that. These long tail kind of service plus local city keywords. And so we do a lot of content handcrafted, and then a lot of content programmatically, and that hybrid has helped us.
Love it. No, I love that, the way you do customer research on some of those platforms, right? And just taking the questions and answering them, because anyone could go on Reddit and Quora in their specific industry and take a look and see what actually people are saying, or Facebook groups, or Amazon. Some people look at Amazon reviews on products or books, or things like that.
Exactly. And the content there is not going to be premium. It's going to be a bunch of people shooting from the hip, answering it ad hoc. And so you have to like pick out the nuggets and use that as the basis for your research, and then like bring it all together and package it up into one piece that's a lot more helpful for people.
And, Bryan, going back to the sales process for a second, for, your GreenPal, obviously SEO is helping with getting people there. When you had the lawn care business and you grew it, what did the sales process look like when you had just toiled for 3 or 4 years? What kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, we eventually learned that we were never going to build a profitable business competing on price. And so a lot of people in that industry, it's super hyper competitive, low barriers to entry. And so competing on price is common, whether people want to admit it or not. We had to shift the whole thing and try to figure out, where are our customers trying to go? What are they trying to achieve? If you're McDonald's, you're trying to increase sales, same store sales, and you're trying to figure out how to get people to buy more extra value meals. And so we would look at that as like, well, how do we get people to buy more extra value meals? Okay, well, I got to tell you, the drive-through looks horrible. It's full of cigarette butts. It's full of bubble gum wrappers. Like, I don't want to eat here. Like, this looks so awful. And we would take pictures of that. It was like, and we would say, hey, here's a before of what your drive-through looks like. And we cleaned it all up. Our technicians cleaned it all up as part of our weekly mowing. And now here's what it looks like. And we just think that might help you increase apple pie sales or something like that. And we would tie what we're doing not just cutting the grass to, how do we help you get where you're trying to go? We would do that for restaurants or for apartment complexes. They would say, we would ask them like, okay, yeah, well, what is your occupancy? What's your vacancy? It's like, well, we're at 89%. Really? Okay. Well, we went to the Greater Nashville Apartment Association meeting last week, and they were saying that average in this market is 95%. Well, why don't you think you're there? Well, this and this. And we said, well, what if we can help you move that a couple points? I think we can help you get to 91 or 92 over the next year. And if we don't, then you don't have to renew the contract. And we're going to get you there by making the grass a little greener and thicker. We're going to install some flowers around the model. We're going to install a seasonal color display around the entrance to lure people in. And when we were able to deliver on that, man, that's a customer for life. They're not bidding you out every year. And so taking that long view with our clients and help them get where they were trying to go in business. And we weren't just grass cutting. We were trying to help them get where they were trying to go with their objectives, is what shifted it. And that was kind of an unlock. And nobody else was doing that.
I love it. Right. So, so basically everyone could be asked the question of their company, how can our company solve a bigger challenge for that person? And you were talking about, not comparing the features, but talking about the benefits. Like, you weren't going in there with lawn care. Like, how can we solve their occupancy, and what are the things our company can do? Because who would think a lawn care company is going to solve my occupancy, my vacancy, right? But you showed them ways they could actually help with that. So that's great exercise to think through. The last question is, Bryan, first of all, I want to thank you. I want to point people, they could check out yourgreenpal.com. So if you are a homeowner or you own a apartment complex or something like that, you can actually get some quotes in your local area because they're all over the US. So yourgreenpal.com. My last question is on leadership. You mentioned that was kind of like the last piece of improving yourself. So what are some, mentors? It could be your mentors in business or distant mentors, meaning books or resources you like. We mentioned the E-Myth. And what are some of your go-to leadership resources?
Yeah, every book John Maxwell has ever written, obviously. I mean, that and that's really all you have to do if you're trying to be a good leader in a small business. You don't need to read much else other than his stuff. And I stumbled onto John's stuff. One day I was driving into my office, running my first company, and I had like this pit in my stomach. Like I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to I didn't want to go. And I was like, man, I mean, half the people that work for me are jerks. My customers are always complaining. Why does this suck so bad? And I hate this. I felt like a victim. And I thought, and then like a voice in my head said, you idiot, you built this. This is a reflection of you. This is a reflection of your enthusiasm. This is a reflection of your level of intensity you're bringing to this business. You don't have the fire in your belly anymore like you used to. And that's why all of this has decayed around you. And so I think it's important to, like, when you're in business, everything is your fault. And it all is scaffolding around you. Your people, your team, you get exactly the culture you deserve as the founder. John's stuff really helps you face that reality. And then also remind you that it's all about servitude. You really have to care. There's no way to fake it. You got to care. And I don't know any other shortcut. You have to give a crap about your people.
Bryan, I want to be the first one to thank you. Everyone, check out yourgreenpal.com. Check out more episodes of the podcast. And thanks, Bryan.
Jeremy, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.